3, 2, 1, go.
Wait, no. What are you doing?
No, he said.
I will count us in.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, go!
Oh, God. I'm keeping up. With you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Kind of an indictment of Lawrence.
It was
Thank you,
surprising
Trey
that he was so close to us.
Yeah.
I like that.
I'm keeping up with you guys.
I was all
See,
excited.
that's why we had you grab the mic for the commentary.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, to an intimate date with me and Matthew Berry. The rigatoni will be here shortly, but we are here in Claude Monet's restaurant. Now, we're in Dallas, the Ritz-Carlton Hotel.
Yes, we are.
And that video was not Matthew Golden, it was us.
Yes.
On turf at AT&T Stadium.
Very easy to get confused. We did our show live yesterday from AT&T Stadium, Fantasy Football pregame, and somebody, I blame myself because I was the one who immediately said, like, hey, we should be live on YouTube. We should involve the comments. We should involve the listeners, the viewers. And so far, it's worked out usually pretty well. But yesterday, somebody said, oh, you guys should do a 40-yard dash. And that person, whoever that is evil, is mean, is cruel, who knew that, at my advanced age, like making me without any warm-up in jeans and like full makeup and gear and, whatever. But you know what? I feel like the real losers of that weren't me, even though I finished last. It's a lot of you that some of you are 20 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Everyone there on the set is at least 10 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And I was, 3 or 4 steps behind.
Yeah.
Like it was closer than it should have been, Jay Croucher.
Yeah, it was. So there's two things. One, there was a first, second, third, and fourth, but really everyone was a loser. Everyone was a loser in their own way. But the real loser was George Savaricas, who was immediately in rationalizing everything mode, where he was saying, "Well, I got a bad get off the jump. Once you adjust for get off, I probably won," which is the most loser behavior possible to get into that.
He was down bad. George Savaricas was absolutely down bad. But I don't want to mock him too much because him and I are in a tight battle for our show league as well. I desperately need Chase Brown and Cortland Sutton to somehow outscore Bo Nix and Breece Hall.
That'd be tough.
He's got a 1-point lead of me heading into it. Once again, Darnell Mooney leaves the game early. Fourth week in a row, one of my players leaves the game early. Derrick Henry brutal again. We'll get into all of it. But we were at AT&T Stadium last night as well, Jay.
Yes.
For an epic showdown between the Cowboys and the Packers.
Yeah, didn't have a 40-40 tie on my bingo card, the first tie in the NFL in 3 years. It was a magnificent game, really. A lot of players played at an extremely high level. Chief among them, Dak Prescott and George Pickens. George Pickens goes for 33.4 yards. Also had a bad drop in there. Could have been even higher. Josh Jacobs, who left the game hurt at one point, came back in. He was incredible. I thought Dak Prescott, though, Matthew, was the real story. I thought Dak continues to play real life like a top 5-7 quarterback, and fantasy-wise, it's coming along as well.
Look, 31 of 40, 319 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. The rushing touchdown also impressive. Not something we've seen from Dak in a long time. And to your point, against one of what we think is one of the better defenses in the NFL, my best bet on Football Night in America was Rashawn Gary, to get half a sack, right? He had 3 straight sacks. I'm like, their backup offensive line, they were missing 2 starters from the offensive line, the Cowboys were, and he didn't get home. Micah got 1 sack late, which was a very generous ruling on a sack. It looked more like a tackle, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was someone's got a lot of Micah Parsons to win Defensive Player of the Year. I was very happy with that stat allocation, where I'm pretty sure Dak gained a yard on that run, but it was a bad spot, so the stat stands. And also Dak, he was very close to running in that one for a second rushing touchdown for the game. But he was magnificent, and we heard from Dak specifically on how well George Pickens has stepped up as a wide receiver 1.
That's what he does. That's who he is, and that's what allows that chemistry to grow. Is when I get a guy who I've seen on film make play after play, and then he shows up here and he's not missed a beat, and he's getting better. He's getting older through experience and more mature. That trust just only grows more, and the chemistry is just going to expedite that whole process. And he's a hell of a player, and he loves football, and that's what I love most about George. He's a guy who loves football. He's a hell of a teammate, and he's always locked in, whether he's getting the ball or not in the past games when CD was here or now he's the number one and he's being called upon. He embraces that role and that responsibility, and as I said, just the language and the things he was talking in the huddle, proud of him.
Yep, I think
So that's Dak Prescott on George Pickens.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that I was expecting this offense to be kind of stuck in the mud without CD Lamb because it didn't look great against Chicago, but Pickens was awesome. Dak played at an incredibly high level. Great. So how much do you buy the idea that Dak Prescott can be a legitimate QB1 until CD comes back?
Yeah, I mean, I think a low-end QB1. I mean, the problem is there's just not a lot of margin for error because, yes, he got the rushing touchdown here and he was a little bit more spry than we've seen, but that's not a part of his game. So he needs to have high volume in terms of his passing and, a lot of passing touchdowns for him to be, a top 12-ish fantasy quarterback. But their defense is going to be terrible, continue to be terrible. And, yeah, Dak looks dialed in. He's fully healthy. He looks great, to your point. He was incredibly efficient last night. He looked the part of a franchise quarterback. And, getting the production they're getting from Pickens and Ferguson. Tolbert made an unbelievable catch down the sideline at the end of the game as well.
That's one of the best throws I've seen in my life. He's fading away with the game on the line, basically. And if he's able to hit Tolbert in the one spot where he can get it, it was an incredible pass and incredible catch.
Yeah, I mean, Tolbert made a great play to come back for the ball, but still, I thought he was throwing – when he first threw the ball, I'm like, oh, smart. Dak could play to get away from just to get rid of the ball and throw it out of bounds and didn't realize there was anyone down there to catch the ball. So, unbelievable play. So that's what I think he's – I think we may, he's as we head into Monday Night Football, he's the number one quarterback in fantasy. But I think we've probably seen his best game of the year. But the question was, can he be a QB1 this year? Can he be a top 12 fantasy quarterback? And I think he can. Now, again, as many touchdown passes in this game 3 that he had in the first 3 games combined. But I do think it is somewhat sustainable because the defense is that bad. Do I think they're putting up 40 every week? No. And again, I don't think the rushing is going to be something that's consistent. So I think more to the lower tier. But yes, I do think I'm buying into Dak, is what I would say. And I'm also buying into George Pickens. Now, this is the second best fantasy game of his career. He's only had 3 where he's been north of 25 fantasy points. He's the number 2 wide receiver in fantasy, 33.4 as we head into Monday Night Football. But one of the reasons why we liked him so much in the preseason, he was on my preseason love list. He was a sleeper for me. He was, other people were bullish on him coming to Dallas as well, which is that he's in an offensive system where and a quarterback that can use his skill set the best. He's not in a run-heavy offense with Mason Rudolph quarterbacking it or the ghost of Ben Roethlisberger or whatever. He's got a real quarterback in Dak Prescott, and they're going to want to throw. This is the thing that's most encouraging to me. So far this year, he's got 9 end zone targets. That is tied for the most in the NFL. And they're obviously going to use him deep. Getting CeeDee Lamb back will help, but in his first game where he's an alpha wide receiver 1, 8 for 124, 2 touchdowns. He gets the 11 targets. Again, we're not expecting 40 points every game, but he did George Pickens type things. He won jump balls. He won matchups. He got off the line of scrimmage as well. Aloha Bricks, our old friend Aloha Bricks, says, do you think George Pickens will finish as a top 20 wide receiver? Should I sell high or keep him? I would keep him. Yes, I do think I would rank him probably, if I was ranking for the rest of the season, I'd probably put him somewhere in the wide receiver 15 range.
Yep.
Jay, so I do think he's a top 20 wide receiver. I think there's more volatility with him just because so many of his targets are down the field. He's got a higher depth of higher depth of target than a lot of wide receivers, so there's more variance there. But at the end of the day, good quarterback, good offense, talented player in a system that I think's made for him. I do think he's, somewhat volatile, legit wide receiver 2.
Yep, agreed there. I think maybe the more interesting wide receiver question coming out of last night is, what is Romeo Doubs? Because Romeo Doubs looks like Jordan Love's number 1 target. Jordan Love is a guy who airs it out. He scores the 3 touchdowns last night, which is not going to sustain. But what could sustain is Romeo Doubs being the number 1 wide receiver in a potentially elite offense. So how much are you buying that Romeo Doubs can be, perhaps not a wide receiver 2, but a really high-end wide receiver 3?
I think he's more of a mid-tier wide receiver 3 with some real variance. Look, 3 touchdowns is 3 touchdowns, man. You know what I mean? And he finishes, with 29.8 fantasy points. But think about that. He scored 3 touchdowns, and he still couldn't crack 30 fantasy points. He had 58 yards.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, 6 for in a game in which the Packers put up 40 points, and Romeo Doubs had 3 touchdowns. He still had under 60 yards receiving. He had a 22% target share in this game. It's not like he had like some massive 35, even 32% target share. Like 22% target share, which was nice. And on the season, he's got a 17% target share. So, I will say that I think he is him and Tucker Kraft are the 2 clear-cut red zone and end zone threats that Jordan Love likes. When they get in close, if they're not giving it to Josh Jacobs, they're going to throw to Tucker Kraft or Romeo Doubs. But again, he's had 2 different games under 30 yards. He's been under 70 receiving yards in every game this season. And so I'm more of the, if somebody wants to give you a more consistent usable piece for Romeo Doubs, I would sell high on Romeo Doubs. I think he's a shaky wide receiver 3. They're on a bye this week, by the way. If there's one positive, they're out of the bye. Home to Cincinnati, at Arizona, at Pittsburgh. So 3 straight games where you feel like a pretty good offense, pretty good matchups, I should say. Yeah,
I would almost think of Dobbs as like a touchdown-dependent tight end.
Yeah,
because it's like end zone based, and he needs touchdowns to score. Let's go to
think that's right.
The Cowboys' NFC East rival, the New York Giants, who got their first win of the season. So we look at the notable fantasy performances. Marion Hampton, who we're going to talk about, he leads the way with not a lot of volume because they were trailing the whole time, but he made it work at 27.5 fantasy points. But I think the most interesting aspect of this game, the debut of Jaxson Dart, goes for almost 20 fantasy points. Doesn't do a lot through the air, Matthew, but Jaxson Dart, there is going to be a delta between his real-life value and his fantasy value, and the fantasy value is pretty high.
This is the point I was trying to make. And I mean, we said it last week as well. As soon as the news broke, he's going to be a top 12 fantasy quarterback from moment one. And people are like, the Chargers, offensive line, blah, blah, blah. In a game in which he also loses Malik Nabers, and we'll talk about that in a second. As we head into Monday Night Football, he's QB8. Unless all 4 quarterbacks tonight go, completely crazy, and I don't think that's going to happen, Jaxson Dart's going to finish his debut in a game in which he didn't have Malik Nabers for much of it, and he played against what we think is a pretty good defense in the Chargers, and he's going to finish as a top 12 fantasy quarterback, and I don't think that's a fluke. He had 10 rushing attempts, right, including 3 in the red zone and 2 on the goal line. 57% of his points came as a runner, but by the way, that's part of it. That was part of the argument. We saw this in the preseason. He's going to run around and use his legs, and we did the Football Night in America podcast last night, and we were doing a speed round, and they were like, what's one word to describe? And one of the questions was Jaxson Dart's debut, and I said, encouraging. There's some stuff to clean up from both a professional, from a real football and fantasy football perspective, but I'm encouraged. If I was a Giants fan, I'd be thrilled this morning. You won a game you probably shouldn't have, right, against a team that I think is better than you. And assume if you told me hey, you're playing the Chargers with a rookie quarterback and you're going to lose your best offensive weapon, pretty early on, I'd be like, well, there you go. That's a lot. And the Giants won that game, and so I would be. I do think while there's going to be kind of a longer growing curve with Dart from a real-life NFL perspective, he's a QB1 fantasy-wise moment 1.
Yep, and not every week he's not going to have to face as good or well-schemed a defense as the Chargers week in, week out.
They play the Saints next week.
Yeah, which is much easier despite the Saints being quite plucky. We heard from Jaxson
Now we will
Dart.
say then after the Saints it's Eagles, at Denver, at Philadelphia. So again, Eagles in 2 of the next 3 after the Saints. But still, again, I just think the rushing elevates his floor.
Yep. Okay, we heard from Jaxson Dart yesterday on winning in his debut and where he can improve.
Obviously, this experience was a special one, being my first one. And I'm just grateful to have the guys around me that I had. I obviously want to give a big shout out to Russ. I know that this week probably wasn't the easiest thing, but he handled it like a professional and just was a mentor for me. So, obviously just have a ton of respect for him. I was just waiting for it to hit 0 because, obviously that Dallas game, in my mind I thought we were going to have that one. So I was just staring at the clock, just waiting for it to count down. But, John Runyon was right next to me, and that was a cool moment to have with him. And, it was just, special to get the first one.
Jaxson Dart talking about Russell Wilson. So I think one of maybe the more interesting fantasy aspect of the Giants now is Skattebo, who's getting an insane amount of workload.
Yeah.
He is a
27
must start.
touches.
He's a must start when he's getting this type of workload. But like, how high is the ceiling? Is Cam Skattebo like a running back 1 at this point?
I don't think so. I'm nervous about the passing game usage. He's a must start at least until Tyrone Tracy comes back. But they need to figure out the offensive line, and he needs to. The passing game usage isn't significant. I do think, again, the double-edged sword with having a mobile quarterback like Dart, it's going to open up some rushing lanes, but it's also there's a chance that he gets vultured at the goal line a few times as well. And so touchdown opportunities may be up and down. But look, I mean, I think this is right. Like his stat line, I think in this particular case is right. Like 25 rushes. Okay, and 2 targets. So ultimately, like, he got 27 attempts, insane usage to your point. And yet, 79 yards rushing, he had 11 receiving yards, didn't get a touchdown. He finishes as running back 19 as we head into Monday Night Football, and that sounds about right to me. I think he's a low-end RB2 because of the lack of the passing game usage. But for the next however many weeks Tyrone Tracy is out, it's clear the backfield is his, and this offense, especially like he'll probably be on the love list next week against the Saints.
Yep. All right, let's jump to the Chargers. Lad McConkey is the story here. He's probably the guy I get more texts about than anyone else. Is like what to do with this guy.
Super weird, because the person I get the most texts about is you, actually.
Okay, that's strange. Yeah, Lad McConkey for me, Jay Crouch for Matthew. I almost did as much as Lad McConkey did at Giants Stadium yesterday. He has 1 catch for 11 yards, 6 targets, which is also weird. Like, he's not a deep ball guy. Like, why are you getting 1 catch from 6 targets? So what are we doing with Lad McConkey?
Yeah, he was so terrible. I'm surprised you don't have a large bet on him.
Yes.
Very good.
I'll try to find one. Yeah, I'll try and
if you
one.
could. Look, last week we said I own this. Like no. I think this is the week that McConkey gets off the schneid. I'm not panicked. I'm a little panicked. Quentin Johnson, look, like whenever there's a performance, whether it's elite or not, it's like, okay, why did this happen and can it repeat? And so the concern with McConkey is that, like, the reason it's happening is because they're getting such good production from Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen, and you're like, can that repeat? And you're like, clearly it can be. Like, it's like the first game against the Chiefs, you were like, all right, well, he just got loose for one and bust down in coverage, but like now they're actively targeting him. They actively targeted him last week against Pat Surtain, had him, and so this is now back-to-back games for McConkey where he's had less than a 16% target share. And McConkey is somebody, he's not a big touchdown scorer. He needs that volume. And the other weird part is that this is somebody that we think is talented. He caught 17% of his targets. It's his first career game with a catch rate below 50%, third straight game with less than 50 receiving yards. He does not have 1 end zone target this year. And so I'm nervous on McConkey, to be honest. I think I will say this, that going into this week, into week 5, for the first time all year, I will have Quentin Johnson and Keenan Allen ranked ahead of him.
Wow.
I will. The last thing I'll say on McConkey, though, is that for our purposes, I don't know that there's anything you can do. You don't want to. He's got no value right now. You can't sell him, right? So I think you just have to keep him, and then it obviously depends on what your options are in terms of whether you start him. We'll talk about that as the week goes on. But I think, unfortunately, right now, you just have to sort of hang tough and lower expectations because I don't think he's this bad. I think he is a talented player, and I think. But, like, if you said to me, all right, pick one Chargers wide receiver for the rest of the year, I don't know that you're necessarily picking Lad McConkey. QJ looks great.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's like it was always going to have to take a massive outlier for Lad McConkey to really fail in this offense from a fantasy perspective. And the massive outlier is that Quentin Johnson now looks very much like a first-round pick and a number 1 option. And he's played amazing. And also he gets more deep volume and he gets more touchdown volume. So and Keenan Allen also overlaps a lot with McConkey's role. And Keenan Allen looks very good overall. So yeah, I would still. It's hard to buy low on Lad McConkey. So I don't think people want to sell him at his current value.
Yeah.
But I think that the hope for Lad McConkey now is like high-end wide receiver 3 type of stuff. All right, let's move.
That is the hope.
Let's move to Philadelphia at Tampa Bay. Strange game that seemed completely done, and then it wasn't done. Bucky Irving is the highest scorer, 25.5 points. Mekari Puka, an insane 70-yard touchdown bomb. Baker Mayfield doing Baker Mayfield stuff all day, lots of highs and lows. But I think one of the big stories out of this game is just the continued struggles of Saquon Barkley to be efficient on the ground. And we heard from Saquon on his early season concerns with the run game.
You see a lot of pressure into runs. They're trying to muddy it up. They're doing a good job. you know, that's what happens when you have the year that we have last year and you got a year of tape. We got to do a better job of adjusting to that and you know, having answers to that. And I got to do a better job. The running game always starts with me. So, and I'm a big believer in that. And when the running game's going good, you know, when the running game going bad, I got to own it. And I just got to be better. But the beauty of it is we're not running the ball too great, and we're 4-0.
Pretty incredible that arguably the two least efficient, high-volume running backs or players in the NFL are the past two guys who've won Offensive Player of the Year. Christian McCaffrey, who's like 3 yards per carry, and Saquon Barkley, who's 3.1 yards per carry on the season as well.
Yeah, averaging 2.3 yards per carry, as you mentioned, right? Like, so he's been under 85 yards from scrimmage in 3 of the 4 games so far this season. You know, and it is so funny, right? And we'll get to the A.J. Brown tweet in a second. But you'd have thought Saquon Barkley lost the game. Like he's somber, he's sad. Like they won the game.
This is they're 4-0. This is the Eagles' legacy. They're defending Super Bowl champions with 4-0, and they just seem in perpetual on the edge of crisis at all times. It's like everything's blowing up, but they just win games.
Yeah, I mean the problem here with Saquon, one of the concerns we had last year was like, listen, last year he's not involved in the passing game. He gets vultured at the goal line. He needs these long, crazy runs to bolster his production. And last year he got them. This year he's not. The positives is he's getting the touchdown. He gets into the end zone on this one as well. He's 17.4 fantasy points. He's an RB15, not what you drafted him for, but you'll take it. Speaking of somebody who has, Derrick Henry on his team, like I'd be killing for Saquon Barkley right now. But the fact is not particularly efficient. As you mentioned, if there's a positive here, they are involving him in the passing game more, right? On the season, he's got a 17% target share. The problem is they just don't pass.
Yeah,
17% of nothing is still kind of nothing. I mean, they're throwing for under 150 yards a game. They had -1 yards of offense in the second half. The Eagles did.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts was 0 for 8 in the second half of this game, and yet somehow they still end up winning. I don't know that there's a big takeaway here other than the fact that, you hope that they're aware of it and they're going to address it. The positives of Saquon is that he's not super efficient, but he had 23 touches in this game. He's still going to continue to get massive workload on one of the better teams, not one of the better offenses, but on one of the better teams in the NFL. But probably more high-end RB2 than elite RB1 at the moment.
Yep. You mentioned that the Eagles do not throw the ball very much. The other players of that affects in a negative way, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, who continue after show. A.J. Brown was phenomenal against the Rams, and then just back to really the first couple of weeks for A.J. Brown.
And then he sends out a tweet. Our colleague, Dr. Denny Carter, has a very famous tweet.
His great legacy.
Yes, that is his great legacy. But had a tweet. This is Denny, who basically posted the typical tweet from every position, like a quarterback, a running back, wide receiver, and a tight end. And the typical wide receiver quote is something like, the enemy speaks softly and carries a big knife, or something insane, right? Something cryptic and weird. And of course, A.J. Brown did exactly that for not the first time in his career.
I think A.J. Brown's a little bit in on the joke. I think he tweeted basically Denny's tweet. So I think he's kind of in on it now, and he's having a little bit of fun. But still, it's still weird. And it's not good. And he goes
because,
2
by the way,
for
he
7.
got 9. But yes, he was 2 of 7 in this game. So, but he got 9 targets.
Yeah,
it's just the issue is that Jalen Hurts is not super accurate.
How does A.J. Brown have more targets than yards? It's completely ridiculous.
That is correct, though. 2 for 7. He had 7 receiving yards and 9 targets. Each of the last 3 games, he's got over a 30% target share. So, they're not throwing a ton, but when they do throw, Jay, they are trying to throw to A.J. Brown. I will say that he, just whatever. Bad day at the office. He had a 22% catch rate on Sunday. That's the 3rd worst of his career. Some of it was on him. Some of it was on Jalen Hurts. Credit the Buccaneers for also playing them tough. I don't know that there's a fantasy takeaway other than I actually think A.J. Brown might be a little bit of a buy low, but there's going to be volatility.
Yep, agreed.
He's more of a volatile wide receiver 2 than the low-end wide receiver 1 that you drafted him. Devontae Smith is like a wide receiver 4 at this point.
Yep. Another guy,
and I don't think you can start him going forward until we see some consistency.
which is crazy for a guy who won the Heisman and was so good in his first couple of years, but just such a low volume offense. Another guy who might be a buy low, Matthew, is Chris Godwin, who did not fill up the box score, traditional stats, but was out there a ton for his first game back from a serious injury, and just that usage forward suggests that there are very good things in Chris Godwin's future.
10 targets, which led the team, a 91% route participation, and they also tried to get it to him deep a few times. He had 4 different targets on deep passes. His average up the target in this one was just south of 15 yards, 14.6. So, like, they're throwing to him deep, and Puka had the big game, obviously, but, like, if you're telling me Chris Godwin's out there for 91% of the routes in first game, like, better days are ahead for the Tampa Bay offense and for Chris Godwin, who, if you could somehow acquire because somebody feels like Puka has taken over this passing attack, I would 100% do it. The Buccaneers are going to continue to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. Bucky Irving, just a monster day at the office. And what's crazy is, to me, the biggest thing here, he's had at least 4 receptions in every game.
Yeah.
Like, the argument was, oh, well, Rachaad White's the passing down back. No, it's like it is all Bucky Irving.
Would you rather have Bucky Irving than Saquon Barkley going
Yes.
forward? Yep. Agreed. All right, let's jump to Washington, Atlanta. Another guy.
I'd also rather have Bucky Irving than Derrick Henry.
Yeah,
I'm very frustrated with Derrick Henry. It's killing my dad. Like, I got a good shot at being 0-4, and it's all Derrick Henry's fault.
I tried to
and
tell
all the
you.
injuries.
I tried to tell you. He was done.
Keaton Mitchell.
Yeah, I actually called that one.
Yeah,
one of my rare hits.
Well played.
All right, let's get to Washington.
We really are in like a restaurant. It's the most random thing in the world. It does feel like you and I are on a date. It is. Yeah, it is.
It's very confusing, but we push on as the Atlanta Falcons pushed
One night
on,
in Dallas
against the Commanders, where
I was
Robinson.
hoping to filibuster until we didn't have to get to this game.
No, we got to talk about Marcus Mariota and his friends. Not his friends, Bijan Robinson, who was doing the Christian McCaffrey thing, where he's basically like a wide receiver too, just on receiving yards, and then he's also one of the top 4 or 5 running backs in the NFL. Drake London had an incredible game. Deebo Samuel had a great game too, and we'll get to him. But start with Drake London, and we heard from Raheem Morris on Atlanta following Drake London's lead.
We were able to exploit some things down the field today. We were able to get open. We were able to throw the ball out there and put it up there and give them a chance on things. There was some definitely trust built over the first couple of weeks, and being able to let some of those things go and the timing of the play. You know, these things aren't open a lot in the NFL, and sometimes you got to let it go and let Drake make some plays, and he went out there and made them today. It's always great to see Drake play well. You know, when Drake goes out and he plays with that type of physicality and he plays with that type of energy, our team is just different. It's just across the board. So, you know, being able to see those things and Drake be able to get out there and get some receptions and have some success is absolutely awesome. And to stop you guys from writing about, you know, receivers not having touchdowns is beautiful.
Signs of life from Atlanta's passing game.
Yeah, well, they fired Ike Hilliard as their wide receivers coach.
It's all fixed.
Yeah, there you go, Detective Drake London.
I got to say, I don't think Michael Penix looked great in this game, regardless, but he was able to support Drake London. And this stat line, 8 for 110, a receiving touchdown, 10 targets. This is the type of line I thought we'd see much more often from Drake London.
60% of his targets also came in the slot, which I think is important. It's something we've talked about a lot with Detective Drake London, that they try to move him around and get him kind of those easy catches. You know, credit to Dan Quinn's defense for like, you know, elevating Michael Penix. So a week after getting shut up by Carolina, they light the Commanders up. So this is a tough loss for Washington and a bad look for Dan Quinn's defense. But I will say this. I thought London obviously looked awesome, 38% target share, but also for all the fun we've had about Kyle Pitts on this show, I think Kyle Pitts is back to being a tight end one.
Wow.
I mean, like 75 for 70 and a touchdown. He looked good. They are looking for him again, especially given the fact that Darnell Mooney cannot stay on the field. Like another draft pick I regret in our deep league. So, 4th straight week that I've lost somebody, you know, during the game, that somebody has injured and left the game here. But I'll save my excuses for tomorrow. You know, when
after George wins by half a point and the curse continues.
Oh my God!
Really cheering for the curse to rear its head tonight.
The group chat will just go off and just brutalize me. Luckily, I'm a back-to-back champion of the league. But anyway, I think this was a good sign. Like after last week, which was such a disaster against Carolina, it was good to see Atlanta get back to looking like what we thought the Falcons would look like, which is, you know, Bijan and Drake London, and also I think Kyle Pitts. Till further notice, he is a tight end one. On the other side of the ball here, Jay, I have to believe that until Terry McLaurin comes back, and maybe even when he does, Deebo Samuel is now a must start.
Yeah, I mean, he goes 6 for 72, gets a receiving touchdown. They give him the ball on the ground 3 times as well. I think as well, just aesthetically, he looks leaner. He looks more explosive. I'm not sure he's back to like 2021 Deebo, but he looks much better than 2024 Deebo, where he's dealing with injuries and he was being forced to play as an X receiver because Brandon Ayuk was out. So, yeah, I think Deebo Samuel is a must start and perhaps a borderline wide receiver 2 until Terry McLaurin comes back.
Yeah, I mean, or low end wide receiver 1. He finishes this heading into Monday Night Football. He's the 9th best wide receiver fantasy. He's had at least 17 fantasy points and at least 6 receptions now in 3 or 4 games this year. Like, the role is sort of there. We sort of, when this trade happened, we thought, listen, if Deebo can get in shape, right, he's a perfect fit for the kind of offense that Cliff Kingsbury runs in terms of all the motion stuff and, all the, trying to get guys in space and just the gadgety stuff he likes to do. So Deebo has been, for a season that's been up and down for the Commanders' offense, and in fairness, Jaden Daniels only played 2 of the games, also on my team, also another injured guy. Not that I'm bitter. Deebo Samuel has been a bright spot for an otherwise, shaky offense. It is a full-blown committee in the backfield, by the way. Yeah. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Chris Rodriguez basically both get 7 touches. Rodriguez has the big run. He has the one big run. But, this is a committee in the backfield. So they're all still prefer, I guess, Krosky-Merritt, but it's a 3-headed committee.
Yep. Well, it's not a committee in Las Vegas, Matthew.
No, sir.
So we jump to Bears Raiders, which wasn't the greatest played game of football, but it was very exciting. And it was mainly exciting because of one man who was on the losing side. That wasn't his fault. Ashton Jeanty finally explodes in week 4, goes for 33.5 fantasy points, long rushing touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, 138 rushing yards. And we heard from Ashton Jeanty on what sparked this breakout and returning to a standing stance.
Feel like I seen the run game a little better. I seen my reads and all that stuff a little better. And, O-line doing what they do. Moving guys up front.
And it looked like you were getting back also to your college stance. Was that something that you kind of brought back into this game?
Yeah, just that's how I naturally feel good, standing in the backfield. So it's just how I'm going to play.
Yeah. Ashton Jeanty, look at his per-game averages without the Michael Myers stance. 17.3 touches, 49 total, and yards per game, 0.3 TDs with the stance. 23 touches, 155 yards total, and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So this is the new deal.
And by the way, it wasn't even like he got amazing blocking. He just didn't get horrific blocking. They were still coming in, but they were still getting into the backfield. And it's not like they used a massive target share. It just was better than, we've talked about this. Why are they not throwing him the ball? And so he had a 10% target share in this game, but under 6% through the first 3 weeks of the season. So I thought that was positive, but he was just making people miss. He looked better. He looked like the guy we all drafted in the first round. So exciting to see. They're at Indianapolis next week. The other piece of this game, other than the fact that just Geno was back to being bad Geno, and you've attached your previously good name to Geno Smith more often than not.
Yeah, I'm on the fence with Geno. I think my name is more attached to men like Brock Purdy, who did not have a good game yesterday either. I go back and forth with Geno. I like Geno. I think that he is a competent quarterback. I also think he'll just never see the linebacker dropping back into coverage.
Yeah.
It's just never going to see it. It's never going to click. This is not a very good team in Las Vegas, by the way. But Ashton Jeanty, I think he proved yesterday he is a guy who is so good that he can overcome a subpar context. Brock Bowers, who has been disappointing, very disappointing from a fantasy perspective, but he's been dealing with this injury. Yesterday he goes 5 for 46, but great target share, and it seems like he's going to get healthier. So do you think Brock Bowers is now a buy low?
I do. Yeah, season high 30% target share. And so the injury is one of these things that, he's still not 100% healthy, but it's also something that can't get worse. So he is going to get healthier. And, again, if he produced with Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, I find it, I would be shocked if he can't do it with Geno Smith. So I actually do think I'm more bullish on Brock Bowers, and I think you can buy low on him. I do think we will see, a top 3 fantasy tight end, top 5 fantasy tight end season from Brock Bowers before all is said and done. I know he went as tight end 1, but better days are ahead for him again, the underlying usage is very encouraging. I think Bowers is a buy low.
Yep. All right, let's jump to Baltimore, Kansas City, which was certainly billed as the game of the afternoon slate, at least. Certainly didn't have it on my bingo card that in this matchup of various superstars, that Justice Hill would be the leading fantasy scorer with 28.7 points.
I'd like to
not Derrick Henry. That's the other.
But at least Derrick Henry made the sheet, right? He's on the graphic. He's there at the very bottom. You have to keep scrolling all the way down, but there he is at the bottom. 7.8 fantasy points. Just yet another just absolutely brutal game.
But, Patrick Mahomes, I think, is in a way the story of this game.
Sir.
Just the first time in what feels like forever that he put up just a monster Patrick Mahomes type of stat line. We heard from Mahomes on the Chiefs turning a corner, plus the impact of Xavier Worthy being back on the field.
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you have success, it's just we've been working extremely hard and we want to have success, and we've been just making little mistakes here and there, and that causes frustration. But at the same time, we've been learning from them, and we'll learn from this game. I mean, I think early in the game, you saw the one to Juju that got tipped at the line of scrimmage, and then the other field goal that we had. I mean, there's stuff that you can learn from every game, win or loss, and I think I've been proud of the guys and how they've responded and wanted to be even better every single week. And then with Xavier being back, it's just that threat of being able to win over the top. It's scary for defenses when they're going to bring pressure, knowing that you can get it to that guy short or deep, and then he can make plays happen. And so we had good answers. There's a couple here and there that I think I could have been better on as far as some of my answers. But overall, I thought we had a good game plan and we executed it well.
Hasn't really.
By the way, I agree with you, Patrick. I think you did have a good game plan, and I do think you guys executed it well.
Yeah, it hasn't really felt like it, but Patrick Mahomes, 4 weeks in, he's had Xavier Worthy for basically one game, and he's not had Rashee Rice for any games, and he's QB3, Matthew. Is he back to being just an elite fantasy option?
Yeah, he has 22 fantasy points in 3 or 4 games this season, to your point, without, a bunch of different weapons. Tyquan Thornton and Hollywood Brown catch touchdowns in this. And so now Xavier Worthy, who had a 23% target share, a 71% route participation, could have had a much bigger day. Mahomes mentioning like a couple throws he would have liked back, right? That he missed him on a couple. It could have been an even bigger day for Xavier Worthy. But you're like, oh yeah, this is the Chiefs. This is what we expect. Now, I think the Ravens defense helped. Like, the Ravens defense heading into this game were bad. They suffered a bunch of injuries during this game. By the end of this game, they had 9 different defensive starters that were out for injury. Some that missed the game at the start, but then guys like Roquan Smith, left the game in the middle of it. And so that definitely helped. But, he looked Mahomes. And again, and so having Worthy in there, and they got 2 games until they get Rashee Rice back, but having Worthy in there just opened it up, and so you see like Tyquan and like Kelsey looked more open, and yes, I think Mahomes is back to being a wide receiver 1, and I think Xavier Worthy, high-end wide receiver 2. We'll see what happens when Rashee Rice gets back, but Worthy looked like the guy we all drafted, including me. It was good to finally get some production out of Xavier Worthy. It's been 3 games without. So,
absolutely.
I'm gathering gathering all my excuses, all my insults. It's already. It's like it's a mountain of evidence here. Yes,
it's a tough scene for Matthew Berry. You love to see it. Hopefully, the losing continues tonight.
It really is.
There's no losing for Puka Nacua, Matthew. As we jump to Colts-Rams, Puka Nacua has been.
The other thing on Mahomes, real quickly before we get to Puka Nacua, is they can't run the ball.
No.
That's the other thing. So it's all going to be on Mahomes' arm.
Yep, absolutely. And they're seeing the lightest boxes in the league, and they still can't run the ball.
Pacheco and Hunt,
Colts-Rams, which was in a way, I think, the game of the day, just with the wild swings at the end. But the story was Puka Nacua, who is wide receiver 1 in a tier by himself at this point. What's crazy about Nacua, Matthew, is that he goes 13 for 170. He finally gets a receiving touchdown, 15 targets. It just feels incredibly sustainable. Like, he's not dependent on deep throws.
No.
It's just, it all comes in rhythm. He can't be stopped because he's so good against zone, and he beats man, and he lines up in the slot north of 40% of the time, so just can't contain him. So is there a player in fantasy, not just wide receiver, anyone that you would want over Puka Nacua going forward?
No.
Yeah.
He'd be, if we drafted today, he's the number 1 overall player. The only concern with him is health.
Yep.
Can he stay healthy? Because, obviously he's missed time, but he's had at least 22.8 fantasy points in every game so far this year. Here's his current 17-game pace, just to give you an idea of how insane this is. 179 receptions for 2,133 receiving yards.
Be a record.
And by the way, He has 42 catches so far this year. That has tied an NFL record in history of all players for the most receptions in the first 4 games of a season. And that's with Devontae Adams still getting his.
Yeah, seems good. Less good, Daniel Jones, who has come down to earth a little bit. He just didn't seem to have the radar on the deep ball at all yesterday. After averaging 26 points in his first 2 games, he's just fallen off a cliff lately and ends the game with a bad pick yesterday. Do you think it's the hype was too premature? Where do you think Jones settles in?
I think a high-end QB2, a usable, low-end. I'm not as worried. This is a tough game. By the way, if A.D. Mitchell doesn't fumble at the 1 yard, like just a complete boneheaded
doesn't have the
play,
holding penalty. It costs them the game as well. It takes back a Jonathan Taylor 60-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, I just think the narrative's different. But just specifically to that's right now Daniel Jones 10.4 fantasy points, QB 24. But A.D. Mitchell gets in there. That's an extra 4 points. Like it just suddenly that is probably like QB 15, and you're not as concerned. Shout out to you, by the way, on Fantasy Football Pregame, where you said, "Hey, your desperation play was A.D. Mitchell filling in the Alec Pierce, the deep ball role." And again, you can't predict the guy's going to have like a brain fart and fumble as he's crossed the goal line.
The joy of fantasy, he's actually had a good fantasy day for A.D. Mitchell. It's just he had the worst possible football game that you can imagine. I agree. Better days ahead for Daniel Jones. Pass rush for the Rams was out of its mind. They had a backup lineman. The Colts, Alec Pierce was out. It'll get better for Daniel Jones with more
by the way, Raiders and home games to the Raiders and the Cardinals are the next 2. So Daniel Jones should get better and better quick.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at some of the notable injuries we're tracking. There's a lot of them, Matthew. Lamar Jackson with a hamstring injury and some doubt for this weekend's game against the Texans. Josh Jacobs came out with a knee, came back in. I'll see what the reporting is there. I'll finish with Malik Nabers, but Ricky Pearsall dealing with a knee and some doubt for Thursday night. Jauan Jennings took a huge hit to his ribs. Darnell Mooney, hamstring. Cedric Tillman, hamstring. Calvin Austin looks like he's going to be out a while with the shoulder. But the big story, Matthew, Malik Nabers tears his ACL.
Yeah, Cedric Tillman, club set, unfortunately, might be closed for a little bit. Isaiah Bond, interesting. We'll talk about a lot of these guys and the replacements tomorrow on the Waiver Wire Show, but we have to talk about Malik Nabers, who, it's being reported, obviously, by NFL that an MRI has confirmed a torn ACL for Malik Nabers. He is done for the year. This is brutal, and you feel awful for Malik, for the Giants, especially when they finally, and Giants fans, especially when they get some hope with Jaxson Dart. We hope he comes back. We'll talk more about the impact tomorrow because a lot of those guys, Wanda Robinson, Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, who got a touchdown, like their pass catchers all get elevated now with a massive target share out, but we feel bad for Malik, his family, his fans, and his fantasy managers.
Indeed. Okay, we're going to hit our first break as the pasta comes in with the creamed shallots, and we'll come back and talk Weekend Warriors and Sunday Scaries.
Yeah, I think you secretly like this, Jay. You say you don't, but just time alone with me. How lucky are you?
Yeah, arguable the degree of luck.
I was a really big fan of Woody in college. When he was at USC, thought he was really elusive, really crafty. And I thought he did a good job, since those days in that Lincoln Riley offense. And I thought today we kind of used him in that light, spread him out, gave him some familiarity, running the ball and some plays that he's ran before. And he's a very dynamic pass catcher. But yeah, he did great.
Texans get their first win of the season, and headlining Weekend Warriors, as prophesized obviously before the season, will be leading a segment. Woody Marks goes 17 for 69 and a touchdown, 4 catches for 50 yards and a touchdown, Matthew. It seems like this is his backfield now. Yeah,
look, we talked about this last week. We've talked about this for a while, about how, that Nick Chubb was not back to being a full Chubb. He's more of like kind of a semi-Chubb, and that, we were excited about Woody. Yeah, about a full Woody, a young Woody.
Yes,
like a lot of people out there prefer a young Woody, an explosive Woody, than a semi-Chubb. And of course, we're talking about Nick Chubb and Woody Marks here. Those of you who are pure of heart would understand that. Season high 21 touches here after 14 touches in the first 3 games. But the thing we talked about all last week was in terms of and why Woody Marks was on the love list this week and why Nick Chubb was not. Woody Marks had 1 less snap than Nick Chubb last week. And so we were like, look, Woody Marks is the Woody Marks era is coming, and I believe it is now here. 18% target share, saw the team's only red zone target for an offense that has seemed for much of the year moribund and dead. Woody Marks gave a spark as well. They're at Baltimore next week, and so that's a pretty good matchup. We will talk more about Woody Marks tomorrow, but I don't think this is a fluke.
Yep, good use of the word moribund. Very appropriate for a sophisticated restaurant chat where we are at the moment. 2 guys just want to quickly mention and pay them their dues. Kenneth Gainwell and DK Metcalf were both phenomenal. Gainwell goes 19 for 99, 2 touchdowns, gives you some pass game usage as well. DK goes 5 of 5 for 126 and a touchdown. Both great. I'd sell it a little bit because DK only had the 5 catches, and with Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Warren will return.
Yeah, DK had the 1 big catch, which is great, and that's part of his game, but that's what made that particular day. It was a Dublin game. Hopefully you were up early enough to see that Jalen Warren was a surprise and active and had the guts to start Kenneth Gainwell, who we talked about. We talked about Kenneth Gainwell in the preseason. You will be amazed at how much Kenneth Gainwell plays. They love him here. This is why Caleb Johnson was on the hate list. It's why Kenneth Gainwell was on the others receiving votes in my preseason love-hate. All that said, to your point, they're on a bye this week. So the Steelers are on a bye this week, and Jalen Warren should be back. I don't mind in a deeper league grabbing Kenneth Gainwell, but you've seen his best game of the year. One guy who you saw his best game of the year so far, but I'm not convinced it's the best game we're going to see from him, is Quinshon Judkins, who absolutely looks the part of a true lead down back. Season high in touches and target share in this game, 25 touches, 12% target share. His touches have increased every single week as he continues to get more and more familiar with this Browns offense. Back-to-back weeks with 16 or more fantasy points, and now he gets the Minnesota Vikings, who Kenneth Gainwell just ran all over at home. I think Judkins is a low-end RB1 the rest of the season. Yeah,
I think he's in the same kind of tier as Jeanty and Hampton, I think, is in terms of the elite runner. He got 21 carries for 82 yards in a game they got blown out. He's just getting usage.
Rest of the year, who would you want, Derrick Henry or Quinshon Judkins?
It's a great question. I'd rather have Quinshon Judkins, but it's very close. Just because of the Lamar injury concerns as well.
Which is the same. But by the way, you have Judkins. I have Henry on my team. I was going to offer you a trade on air if you went the other way with that answer.
I think you have Drake May.
I do have Drake May.
Drake May is a positive spot for your team because he was awesome, and his game lends itself very well to fantasy production. He goes with 3 carries for 11 yards and a touchdown, and then super efficient through the air as well.
He's been a really good fit for what Josh McDaniels wants to do on offense. He's had at least 19 fantasy points in 3 or 4 games this year. He's using his legs. He rushed for a touchdown in this one. Again, didn't have a ton of rushing yards, only 11, but again, the scramble for the touchdown around the left side, just sort of showed you the ability he has, and they're getting other guys involved. A very efficient day. 14-17, 203 passing yards. He plays at Buffalo next week, which I think it's going to continue. It should be, hopefully. By the way, that game on NBC and Peacock Sunday Night Football, I am a company man. Drake May is a low-end QB1.
Yep.
Right? One of the few bright spots of my team and others as well.
Yep. Let's run through Sunday scaries, starting off with the guy who's come to define this segment, Calvin Ridley. Just another week of doing nothing. Should he be on rosters?
No.
Yep.
What did Cam Warren said? Keeping it a buck, we ass.
Yeah.
I believe that was the quote. I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's fairly accurate. And by the way, Cam, you are correct.
Yes.
The Titans offense is, in fact, ass. 13% target share for Calvin Ridley, just 3 targets. That was his fewest in the last 17 games. Like, they haven't been on the same page, but at least he was getting somewhat of the volume. He's not even getting the volume anymore. Under 10 fantasy points in every single game this year. If you saw him on the waiver wire, would you pick him up in any league?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
next week, we'll talk tomorrow, but welcome to Dumpsville, Calvin Ridley. Tough game for Jauan Johnson, a favorite of this show. We love him, but his first game was below 20% this season. 0 red zone targets for the first time this game, in a game in which the Saints offense actually looked pretty good, and Spencer Rattler looked good. I think he got banged up a little bit in this game. I'm not really worried about Jauan Johnson going forward.
He should be okay. A bit worried about Jauan Jennings. The fact that he gets banged up every week. He goes 2 of 4 for 24 yards, gets absolutely crunched. Some doubt about his availability for Thursday night. Have to track that from health's perspective. Also, Brock Purdy's banged up again. Ricky Pearsall's banged up again.
With a toe. It's a short week. They're on the road to Los Angeles, just down the state, but still, just down the freeway. But it's like a 4 or 5 hour drive. But still, you're nervous about this. 11% target share is lowest since week 15. I think we have to, this Jaguars defense is better than they get credit for, Jay.
I think so, and that could also be a problem for Trevor Lawrence, who's the last name on our list, where the idea was that this is going to be a bad defense and Trevor Lawrence is going to be airing it out all the time. Well, he's not playing well, and the defense is giving him game scripts where he doesn't have to do that much.
Under 12 fantasy points in 3 or 4 games this season. The other thing is, the 2 arguments for Trevor Lawrence was, he's got BTJ, the addition of Travis Hunter, this pass first guru in Liam Cohen, and also, they're going to be bad on defense. And we're chucking a ton. He gets you a little bit of points with his legs. He isn't. He's averaging 8 rushing yards per game. They're not using his legs. He doesn't look good.
No.
And the defense has played a lot better than people expected. So, he's QB 22 heading into Monday Night Football. I can't imagine in a 1-quarterback league rostering him. And to me, he's merely, at this point, a QB 3, like a backup quarterback in a 2-quarterback league. I don't even know that you're starting him in Superflex if you can avoid it.
Agreed. All right, we're going to hit our last break. When we come back, it's last call, little Monday Night Football doubleheader preview. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly and $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV. Just download the Sportsbook app, Matthew, and use promo code FFHH when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook.
The crowd is yours.
It's last call. Take a look at the most bet Monday Night Football props on DraftKings. Garrett Wilson, ultra receiving yards, 50+.
Minus 213, but I like that bet.
Yep, J.K. Dobbins as well. He's having a great start to the season. But my best bet, Matthew, it's not a prop. I'm just going to go old-fashioned spread. I'm going to take the Cincinnati Bengals, the mighty fighting Bengals, Houday, plus 7.5 in Denver against the Broncos. I just can't reconcile that the Bengals were 3-point dogs in Minnesota, and now they're 7.5-point dogs in Denver. I think that's an overcorrection off of one really bad game where it just all went wrong. They will be fired up. They will play better. I think Denver's offense has been very shaky so far. Bo Nix does not look great.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL is just this way. Think about Atlanta, who got blown out 30-0 Carolina and then dominate the Commanders this week. I'm taking Chase Brown. I've said this before. I think tonight is the night that Chase Brown gets off the schneid. I think he can run on Denver. That's a weakness of their defense. So give me over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards for Chase Brown. Remember, the Broncos giving up at least 89 yards from scrimmage to a running back in every single game this year. We know Chase Brown gets massive usage. So over 76.5 rushing and receiving yards to Chase Brown tonight. That's my best bet for tonight. Let's look at we have some rankings as well. Here you go.
Sure.
First game. I do think Fields has a big game. Obviously, you're starting Achane. I really hope Breece Hall does not have a good game for George Savarikas. Sadly, I think he will. You're starting Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, merely a wide receiver 3 who's a little dicey. It'll be interesting to see what Ollie Gordon's role is here as well. Garrett Wilson, always a massive target share. I think Justin Fields has a big game in his return.
Yeah, I hope the Jets win for Connor Rogers' sake, because after what happened to the Mets yesterday, we may never see him again. Matthew and I are both riding with the Bengals. Jake Browning, what could possibly go wrong against the Broncos' elite defense? Bo Nix has not had a good season to date, football-wise, but fantasy-wise, Matthew still a must-start because of the rushing.
He is. Again, I'm hoping desperately that it doesn't have a good game for George Savarikas, but Bo Nix. Like, you're starting all the obvious guys here. I do think Cortland Sutton as well. We have one more question. Monday Night Miracle, half-point PPR down 5 versus Hill. I'm starting Sutton. For other sport, do I start Jamar Chase or Jalen Waddle? The answer is Jamar Chase. Stop it.
It's Jamar Chase. I understand it wasn't great last week, but it's still Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and I get it, Waddle, but stop it. Just you're getting way too cute.
Question from Raise the Flags, recreating one night in Buffalo.
Not recreating so much as just celebrating.
Yeah. Adding another chapter to the story.
Yeah.
A more high-end chapter.
Before the show, Jay was saying to our producer, Steve, and he goes, I can't believe, I don't enjoy spending this much time alone with Matthew. And the truth is he does. He does. He just protects. He protests too much.
Yes.
And we've got kind of a Brokeback Mountain thing going over here. It's kind of Brokeback happy hour.
Heath Ledger, the Australian counterpart. You can be Jake Gyllenhaal.
Deal. I like that role. I'm down with that. I've been called much worse than Jake Gyllenhaal in my life. All right, we're back tomorrow in the studio with Connor. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay in this Italian restaurant. For Jay and Matthew, peace out from Dallas. We love you. See you tomorrow. Good luck with your Monday Night Miracles.